Hello everyone and welcome back to another Guild Wars 2 Showdown video. I'm so excited to be bringing this series back and kind of finishing it. So today I'll be bringing you a basic rundown of each of the conditioned DPS professions with comments on their strengths and weaknesses. The basic design philosophy of Guild Wars 2 states that each of the 9 professions can bring some variety of damage, control, condition damage, and support/healing. But for the sake of this video, I will be pinpointing the professions that I believe have substantial condition damage capabilities. The professions I will be examining today include the Mesmer, the Necromancer, the Ranger, the Guardian, and the Revenant. I will also be examining their elite specializations when needed if they help. As a side note, I know that a bunch of other professions can do condition damage, such as the Weaver, the Elementalist, Thieves, Daredevils. But for the sake of this video, just realize that I have shortened it to a pool of lists, or a pool of professions that I'm more interested in examining. This video will not declare one profession as being better than the rest. It will simply be making observations on their mechanics and offer feedback. The profession that is best is up to you and how you play them. For clarity's sake, this video was written and produced on October 20th, 2020. Any further balance patches may affect information present in this video, but hopefully for the better. But please keep this in mind when watching in the future, if you are. If you are, hello from the future. But let's get started. First up, let's take a look at the Mesmer. The Mesmer is a master of illusions and phantom assaulters. Their craft is chaotic and potent, making them high priority enemies and revered allies. In this video, I'm going to be taking a specific look at the Path of Fire elite specialization, the Mirage. So for the class mechanic for the Mirage, they gain access to Mirage Cloak, which grants them an ambush ability when dodging, transforming their weapon's first ability into a new form of attack with often more crucial effects. Keep this in mind with the weapon section of the Mirage. Additionally, Mirages keep the F1 through F4 base Mesmer shatters, so the F2 can bolster your condition damage as well. Also the F1, F3, and F4 if you are traded properly for affecting conditions on all shatters. Now for the weapons. The Mirage's key weapons would be the Axe and Torch for condition-based builds, as well as the Staff. The Axe, which comes with the Mirage, is great for applying large amounts of bleed, torment, and confusion. Utilizing the ambush skill, Imaginary Axes, will further increase the amount of torment available to the Mirage. The Staff applies decent amounts of conditions with multiple clones up, and is great for AoE condition damage with the ambush skill Chaos Vortex, also Chaos Storm. Additionally, to note, the Scepter is also a decent Condi weapon if you want to just mix it up a little bit. For the utilities section of condition damage, I would recommend using Crystal Sands. It's great if you can manage to get all the crystals to strike an enemy in the center, pressuring them with the confusion condition. Illusionary Ambush allows for a nice reposition if you're being pressured, and also will activate Mirage Cloak on all your clones. Signet of Domination will passively increase your condition damage for more damage. Signet of Midnight will, in the same vein, passively increase the duration the conditions are on your foes. This is nice for prolonged fights. As for the elite skills, I would recommend Jaunt, which allows for decent mobility in certain situations, and is useful for teleporting directly onto an enemy and racking them with more confusion. Time Warp is also a standard group support ability if you need some more quickness uptime. Now for the pros of Mirage. In my opinion, Mirage is great for evade frames and confusing enemies in the physical sense and also condition sense, because you're moving around a lot and they also apply the confusion condition. It's okay. Next, I would also say with enough clones up and with proper traits, your clones themselves can pump out quite a bit of damage, allowing you to kind of relax a bit and allow your clones to apply more pressure and incentivize clone management. Without needing to interrupt your actions for a dodge because of Mirage Cloak, Mirages are capable of applying a decent amount of pressure and also kind of mixing throughout the fight, and you're not necessarily sure if they've dodged, if they haven't dodged. You're gonna need to be more focused on the animations. Now for the cons. Torment is one of the main conditions, and is sometimes not as potent if targets are just standing still. So if you're going for the Torment route, you might not get as great of an effect if you're fighting foes who are stationary in PvP or PvE, though I will say in PvP it's much more rare for people to be standing still. Mirage itself cannot really pump up enough might or fury onto themselves if they are alone, so they're going to require some bolstering from allies to really get enough condition damage going and at its maximum strength with 25 might. In PvP, Mirages only have one dodge, and they're much more reliant on individual skill and doesn't necessarily entertain the easy route because you only have one dodge. So you're gonna need to really manage that single dodge well and also mix in other utilities which allow you to evade or become vulnerable. Next up, let's take a look at the Necromancer. Necromancers are masters of dark, wicked magics, utilizing horrific minions, decaying curses, and brutal spells. Today, I'll be specifically looking at the Scourge. The class mechanic for the Scourge is the Sand Shades. These are placeable areas of necromantic influence, allowing you to use F2 through F5 skills to deal damage, condition damage, and apply barriers to oneself and allies. These abilities will focus on torment and fear for condition-focused players. The weapons these necromancers should focus on are the Scepter Torch and the Staff. The Scepter Torch combo will focus on bleeding, poison, torment, and burning, and the Staff will focus on bleeding, chill, poison, and fear. These are solid, ranged, condition damage weapons. As for my recommended utilities, Trail of Anguish is a fantastic stun break that will also paint the floor in a magic that burns enemies. Sand Swell is an okay skill. It honestly could use an evade frame or longer duration that allows you to move around the battle with the chance to corrupt boon and deal more condition damage. Blood is Power also allows for more self-might stacking and additional bleeding on a foe. Corrosive Poison Cloud coats an area in a thick poison that afflicts enemies with poison and weakness while destroying projectiles. Plague Signet is also a cool signet to collect conditions on allies around you in order to send them back to a foe. This utility skill shines more so in PvP and World vs. World scenarios. As for the elites, Plague Lands is a nice core elite skill that will pulse a myriad of conditions over its duration. Ghastly Breach is another condition-based AoE elite, but also focuses on Torment, Cripple, Slow, and Burning on a shorter cooldown. It's kind of like Plague Lands Light. As for the pros, Scourge is a great option when facing foes that stack multiple boons on themselves. Scourges also have a decent defensive mechanic with their easy access to barriers. Scourge and Necromancers in general have many specialization lines that weave conditions into the build, so a flexible build system is available. As for the cons, condition application is more so steady when compared to other professions. Damage is more palpable over long duration fights. Slipping up in a rotation or using a skill that corrupts on a target with no boons can prove to be less damage, though there are minor safeguards to bolster up your damage a bit more, specifically the Scourge's F5 skill, Desert Shroud, which just blasts with Torment and is really nice to pick yourself back up if you've missed a rotation. Next up, I'll be looking at the Ranger. The Ranger is a medium armored adventurer who is a master with long-range weaponry and scouting tools. The Ranger is almost always accompanied by an animal companion to fight alongside them. Specifically, I'll be looking at the Soul Beast. For the class mechanic, Pets being the profession's mechanic to the ranger, there are a few pets to keep in mind for a conditioned build. Fire wyverns, spiders, abogas, bristlebacks, and birds are quite useful. Specifically to the soul beast, picking a deadly pet increases your condition damage and allows you to use a primal cry for more condition application. For the weapons, soul beasts, you have quite a few options to use as conditioned weapons, if I'll be honest. Dual-wielding daggers, axes, torches, and short bows all have abilities to play into a conditioned playstyle. As for the utilities, Vulture Stance empowers your next strikes by poisoning enemies and granting you might. Sharpening Stone allows your next attacks to stack bleed onto your target. Flame Trap adds more burning to your build. Spike Trap adds a nice bleed and launch to your build. And Viper's Nest adds a decent amount of poison to your build as well. I gotta say, I love Viper's Nest just a little bit more than the others. As for the elite, I would recommend Entangle. It offers a large radius immobilization and ticks bleeding onto affected enemies. As for the pros, with having a pet and being able to merge with them, the Soul Beast has quite a bit of versatility and options at their disposal. Poison seems to be the strongest condition that Soul Beasts have when traded properly, which gives them somewhat of a niche. I think the only other profession to share this would be the Thief. With a bit of tweaking to the builds, Soul Beasts can pump out a decent amount of conditions while also sharing boons and effects to allies through their stance skills, and also their commands, which used to be called shouts. As for the cons, while the main hand dagger is the Soul Beast's branded weapon, it feels a tad slow and weak compared to the other options, but it's still manageable depending on the game type. You will have to pick a pet very carefully now that you can no longer swap between them in combat. So effectively, you're only going to be running with one pet, despite you having the ability to select two. Now for the final two heavy armor professions. First up, the Guardian. The Guardian is a heavy armor profession that emphasizes the importance of the group. Guardians tend to prefer the rigor of close quarters combat, but have a couple options when they want to turn the tables to a ranged battle. Specifically, I'll be looking at the Firebrand. The class mechanic with the Firebrand, your Tome of Justice will prove to be invaluable when it comes to the condition department. Despite the Tome of Justice, the core virtues may be equally as useful. For the weapons, a condition-focused Firebrand, the weapons Axe, Torch, Scepter Focus, and perhaps Greatsword would be your most useful options. The Axe and Torch are the most clear options when it comes to having ample access to bleeds and burns. The Scepter and Focus could pass for the sheer amount of packets of damage that they deal, effectively proccing the Virtue of Justice passive effect, which applies burning. The Greatsword also has access to vulnerability, retaliation, and self-defense, but is more power-oriented. As for the utilities, Mantra of Flame is a standard mantra spell that will blast out burning damage in a cone. Purging Flames creates a ring of great burning damage and creates a fire field to help with combos. It will also cleanse conditions, which offers a little bit more support. Signet of Wrath passively increases condition damage to increase your total damage a bit more, while also immobilizing foes. This is more useful in a PvP or world versus world setting. As for the elites, Feel My Wrath is great for personal and group quickness and fury. Mantra of Liberation is nice if you need an extra stun break and more stability. Typically, these work well in competitive settings, while not necessarily applying conditions themselves, but they do bolster and help the individual player. As for the pros, Firebrands have incredible burst potential when it comes to their burning damage. With access to multiple boons by default, Guardians and Firebrands are great in a group setting. Firebrands are quite oppressive in an AoE scenario. This is more so applicable in standard PvP settings. Now for the cons. Guardian doesn't have a wide access to multiple conditions to buffer in between the burning. Other of the professions that we've covered often have like bleeding, burning, torment, confusion, poison. They have multiple things to play off of. But with Guardians, your only condition that will apply most of your damage is going to be your burning. Bursting is much more reliable as a Guardian, but the condition playstyle can be done over a long period of time with proper skill and rotation practice. So Firebrands are a bit more skill oriented and somewhat harder to master because you only have burning. I wanted to put this as a con, but technically it makes the Firebrand and Guardian even better. But I just want to say this. Right now, Guardian and Firebrands, in my opinion, pump out too much burning too quickly. So it's kind of a negative for the overall health of the game. But because it does make them really powerful to play, it's not technically a con. Last up, we have the Revenant. Revenants wield the weird magics of the mists and channel legendary figures from Tyrion's past to assault their foes or mend their allies' wounds. Specifically, I'll be looking at the Renegade. The class mechanic for the Renegade allows for a boost of might on the F2 and a great bombardment of missiles that burn with the F3. For condition playstyle for the Renegade, the Mace Axe and Shortbow combination would best fit this build. Using these weapons grant access to Torment, Poison, and Burning to allow for a triad of potent conditions. The Legends Legendary Demon and Legendary Renegade would suit the cause for a condition playstyle. The Demon's elite skill is great for ample torment stacking over a duration, and the Renegade's utility skill, Razor Claw's Rage, adds a group buff to apply the bleeding condition when allies attack. For the pros, the Renegade, the player also has access to Alacrity on top of all their conditions, which offers a perk in group settings. The amount of torment accessible is so delicious. There's so much torment, specifically when you use the legendary demon stance. The Renegade's Shortbow adds for a nice long-range experience, where you can knock down foes while assailing them from afar. So you have this option of getting close and comfortable with a Mace Axe, or if you want to play back and play it more safe, you can use the Shortbow. As for the cons, Kala's summons are really wonky to use, and my second point in the same vein, so is the Shortbow's fourth skill, Spirit Crush. Both of these categories of weapons, the utility and the Shortbow, are coded quite awfully and really poorly, and it's kind of surprising that it's lasted so long in the game without any corrections. The Spirit Crush skill cannot be used while behind you, but every other AoE ability can, which makes for a really wonky experience in the action combat mode, or the action camera mode. The utility skills can't be placed on any varying height because there's no valid path to target. It's really just kind of crazy how finicky these are. So sometimes the Renegade is more painfully observed and used on a mechanical standpoint, but not necessarily in a power department. It's just sometimes kind of a pain to actually play. So now for the actual ranking of all of these specs. And just to point out, it's really interesting, not so interesting, kind of telling if you've been around for quite a while. I actually talked about all of the Path of Fire elite specs because for some reason Path of Fire, the developers were like, you know what, we're gonna just make every elite spec really good at condition damage, which really kind of made everything really painful for a long time, and still kind of painful, but let's look at the ranking. So coming in at number 1 are actually the two heavy armor professions. I ranked Firebrand and Renegade for my top 1 slot because of the amount of conditions that they apply, and also the group utility and support. Firebrands and Renegades can be seen in almost every area of content, Firebrands especially, because of their access to quickness, stability, protection. Their condition of burning is really strong as well. And so, in the same lane, the Renegade also applies might and alacrity, which are very strong. Coming in at the second slot, we have Scourge and Soul Beast. Soul Beast might nudge above Scourge slightly, because the Soul Beast also has access to group support in their kit. If they're not going to go for group support, however, I don't think they have as much condition damage when compared to a Scourge, Firebrand, or Renegade, or maybe even a Mirage. but I think Soul Beast is kind of at 2 just for the amount of versatility that they can bring and mechanics that they can weave in and out of their build. Scourge in the same vein, mostly because Scourge can deal quite a bit of condition damage and also is great at corrupting boons in a competitive sense. And coming in at number 3, by no means bad, but just, in my opinion, is more singular in its design, is the Mirage. In my opinion, the Mirage doesn't do anything else other than condition damage. And you might be wondering, but this is a condition damage showdown. Yes, but even so, their condition damage might not be the best. I think probably Condi Weaver is the best, if I've looked at the proper graphs and damage numbers. But still, Mirage does have great access to condition damage. It allows Mesmers to play that condition playstyle, but when looking at the other professions and their elite specs and all of the other things that they can bring, I still think Mirage kind of gets nudged down to the 3rd slot. But everyone, those are my rankings and examinations of 5 of the elite specializations and professions. So, comment below what you thought about this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. It was wonderful bringing this video back and this Showdown series back. I'll have to really think about what else I can do with the Showdown series because I've covered damage, condition damage now, I've done tanking even, and I've done healing. So, yeah, I'd love to hear your comments down below. If you would like to support me on Patreon, if you like what you see, be sure to hit that subscribe button and go down to my description and become a patron. I trust you guys have been on the internet for long enough and you guys know what YouTube is all about. So if you'd like to, I would very much appreciate it. But thank you guys for your viewership. I also very much appreciate that. I hope you guys are staying safe, healthy, and sane. And I'll catch you guys in the next video, everyone. Bye, everyone!